Hello and welcome. My name is Gino Barbaro, one of the co-founders of Jake and Gino. And in this how-to lesson, I really want to dive into how you can start healing your relationship with money. Now, that may seem like a weird topic or a topic that has nothing to do with investing in real estate and investing with apartments. But what I've found over the last 15 years or so of coaching and being part of the Jake and Gino community and seeing some members just crushing it and other members not. I mean, you can take two members, have the same skill set, have the same amount of money, have the same goals, have the same talents. One does really well and one doesn't. And why is that? Or where can you trace that back? To me, it has a lot to do with mindset. It really does. Having a fixed mindset versus the growth mindset. But more importantly, it has to do, in my opinion, and especially in my story as well, to the relationship that you have with money. I've heard a lot of people, when they talk about apartments, they say, oh, I can't afford that. It's too big. That's just for rich people. I need to start with single families. I need to start with something smaller. Now, there's nothing wrong with that mindset. In fact, that's where I started because that's what I thought is where you needed to start. That was my relationship with money, with scarcity, maybe a little bit of fear, maybe not knowing what money really was, not having enough value to be able to attract money or to attract those deals. That's the problem. People, when they join, a lot of times in our community, they've got that mindset that who owns these apartments? How do I get the money for the apartments? They're asking the wrong questions. If you have a healthy relationship with money, money is not the problem. The problem really is you don't know what you're doing when you're starting to buy apartments. It's not buying a single family home. There are certain skill sets you need to learn. So if you have a terrible relationship with money, you're saying to yourself, oh, I can't afford these things. Where am I going to get the money? You're not even going to try. You're going to sabotage yourself. And there's another instance. If you have a terrible relationship with money, all of a sudden you make some. Subconsciously, you're going to sabotage yourself and you're going to find ways to lose that money. Maybe you buy another deal, take more risk, and say subconsciously, I don't really deserve this money. I don't really like money. This is what you're saying to yourself. And there's a lot of people out there that are doing this right now. So they go invest in another deal that ultimately fails. But did it fail because a deal on itself, or did it fail because the person buying it subconsciously was trying to sabotage themselves? Now, early on, when I started with Jake, I had very little money. What I did have was a desire, and I really wanted to come to the conclusion that I was stuck. I needed to change what I was doing. It wasn't working. I read T. Harv Eker's book, The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, and that changed everything for me. All of a sudden, I stopped blaming everybody. I started looking at money as this inanimate object. It was just a tool. I said, it's just a result, like T. Harv Eker says. If you have 10 apartment units, you're going to make okay money. You're going to serve 10 people, great. But if you have 1,800 apartments, as we do now, you're going to make more money. You're going to serve more people. You're going to create more impact. That's even better. I didn't understand that. And for me, as I went down that journey and I started healing that relationship that I had with money, the scarcity, the fear, always having those limiting beliefs. It takes money to make money. You need to save money for a rainy day, never for a sunny day. It's always a rainy day. Don't know why, but that's how I was conditioned. So for the first thing that I want you to do, as you're listening to my voice, let me take you back to where my journey started with money. I was 5 years old. I was at my grandma Anna's house. And I remember I'd go there often. My mom would drop me off at her house. She used to walk right down the street. And I would hang out with my grandma. She was awesome. She spoke a little bit of broken English, but I just loved being with her. And I remember walking. Yeah, we would walk to the grocery store. Those were the days. She didn't have a car, but we would walk to the grocery store. And one day we went there and we went shopping. And I remember being at the grocery store and seeing a bag of toy soldiers. And I so desperately wanted to buy those toy soldiers. And I remember grandma saying to me, Gino, I don't have the money right now. I just have enough for our groceries. When mom comes to pick you up, we'll come back and buy them. And I remember the fear and the sadness of not buying those toy soldiers right then and there. And why didn't we have the money? Going home, feeling dejected. And honestly, to this day, I still don't remember if we went back to buy them. I'm sure we did because grandma was, a woman of her word, and I'm sure she would not want to let me down. But I remember the sadness in her eyes that she didn't have the money to buy these soldiers. And I remember what that did to me. Now looking back at it, it created fear about money. It created that we didn't have enough. It created that savings mentality. Now, savings is a good thing. You need to be able to save money. If you don't save money, you can't invest your savings. You can't invest the surplus. As George S. Clayson says in The Richest Man in Babylon, save at least 10%. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. But for me, it left an emotional scar that I needed to save that money and I couldn't let it go. And that's why it took me a long time to start investing with Jake, because the money was saved. If I put it into something or I buy something, it's not there anymore. And that was fear for me. Understanding that. And, I know most people don't like to use the word trauma. They have this picture of trauma of somebody getting beat up, physically beat up, but there's a lot of emotional trauma. And to me, that was part of my trauma in childhood around money. I was starting to create that relationship with money from my peers, from my grandmother, and then my mother and my father as well. They're both hardworking immigrants. They both wanted to save money, live the American dream. They wanted to buy a small business, which we ended up doing. And ironically enough, that's what I did when I got out of college. So the relationship with money also, factored into what I actually went into after college. I went into the small business world, which is what I wanted to do, which is where I guess I learned a lot of those values through my dad. I want you, as you're listening to this, start connecting some of the dots in your life. Go back into your childhood. What did you hear about money? What was talked around the dinner table? I remember going to all the department stores that were the cheap ones, Alexander's. I'm dating myself now. A lot of these stores probably aren't around. The Kmart's of the world, the Sears of the world. We tried to save every nickel. At every opportunity, we were saving money because we wanted to be able to buy a business. And we wanted to be able to buy assets ultimately, but it was painful. I'd be made fun of by wearing cheap stuff. I remember that. That's part of my trauma around money. And growing up, I brought it into my adulthood. I even brought it into my marriage, where we started having kids. And I was comfortable. I was doing really well. But still, there were certain expenses that I really dreaded and I hated spending money on. So what I want you to do right now, think about what happened in your childhood. Is there still trauma around it? What do you view money as? As you're listening to this, what's the one word that you would say that pops into your mind when you hear money? It's such an emotional topic. It's incredible, the concept around money, something that actually it's really an inanimate object. And one of my favorite quotes that one of my mentors told me is, money does not corrupt, it reveals. So money has not corrupted me, especially early on. It just revealed my persona, the way I viewed it. It was one of scarcity up until 2008. It was scarce. I mean, grandma doesn't have the money. My mom doesn't have the money. We're saving, saving, saving. It was very difficult early on for me. That's the relationship that I grew up with. And it's taken a long time to unpack that. One of my good friends, Phil McKernan, he's a clarity coach. He says to do the work on yourself. Doing the work on yourself is hard, but not doing it is even harder. And that's what happens with money. Most of us don't want to do the work because it's really hard. But as if you see right now, if you're having troubles or problems with money, if you're having those limiting beliefs with money, if you're looking at it only from one paradigm, I challenge you, start doing the work. Start thinking about what money means to you and how you can start healing or looking at that relationship. I'm going to hold up the book that we just wrote, Happy Money, Happy Family, Happy Legacy. If you want to start on that journey, just email me, Gino@jakeandgino.com, and I will send you a PDF copy. Now, we're going to take a quick time out to hear from our sponsors. On the other side, I want to talk about the money personas. I want to talk about exploring your values. And we are back. Your relationship with money. Now let's think about the 5 personas, predominant personas. Typically, we all tend to shift and really adopt one, but then we have subsets. So Gino was the saver. I was a big time saver. Then we have Steve the spender. We have George the gambler, Ivan the investor, and Amy the avoider. As you're listening to this, does one resonate with you? Do you feel as if one is calling you? For me, many years was the saver. Then I understood to become Ivan the investor. I need to save money, but then at the same time, I need to let it go. And I need to invest that money to be able to make more money. And I need to have a healthy relationship with money so I don't make those stupid mistakes or those self-sabotaging mistakes. Now, the one that I really feel bad about is the avoider, Amy the avoider. Most of us who grew up in middle income families, you just don't talk about money. So then when we become adults, we start getting these bills and we want to avoid money. That's one of the most detrimental things that you can possibly do, because when you avoid something, you don't make a decision, that's making a decision. And you continue to put it off and continue to put it off and continue to put it off, and you never create any kind of wealth for yourself. So understand what your persona is, and then ask yourself, well, do I need to adopt that persona? Or how can I get help to combat the persona? And it's really important at this stage. That's when I became a life coach. I went to life coaching school because I needed to understand my past. It's important to understand your past, to have some therapy, to understand what's going on. But please don't get stuck in the past. View the past, work on the past, work through those emotions, work through Grandma Anna holding my hand at that store and saying we don't have the money for it, and understand that and try to release that emotion and start viewing money in a different light. Start challenging your limiting beliefs. Finally, I'd like to ask you to explore your values. What are your values? For me, my values were hard work, they were family, they were commitment, they were integrity. All of these things, I think, really laid the foundation for me when it came to my relationship with money. When the fact that came that money started coming into my life, it didn't corrupt me. It just gave me the ability to use that money in so many different ways to be able to help my family. I'm not driving around Lambos. That's not what I was making money for. Now, if that's what you're doing, there's nothing wrong with that. There's no judgment. It's great. Use the money to make you happy, because money really is there to help you create autonomy, to give you the options in life. That's what we want in life. We want options in life. And if you're able to create money to be able to create impact and to be able to have more options in your life, that's what money is there for. It's there for a tool. It's not there just to buy an apartment building. Apartment buildings are great. But what happens, apartment buildings is just a vehicle to create wealth. What do you do with that wealth? For me, it's continuing to perpetuate that wealth, to being able to teach others to perpetuate wealth for themselves, to being able to create wealth and to maybe opt out of the system. That's what money has allowed me to do. Now, ultimately, think about what your values are and how do they align with money. If you're someone who's responsible, you're going to want to be responsible with your money. You want to learn how to invest. You don't just get a pile of money and go, I'm going to invest. Find the vehicle that suits your personality and then go towards that vehicle, and then understand as you're making the money, it's just a result. The better you get, the more money you're going to make. And ultimately, if you want to be happy, is 2 things. It's the autonomy that money gives you, and then ultimately, it's the impact that money that you make and creating the impact for others is what leads to the happiness. If you can understand those concepts, I think the more money you make, the happier you can make the world. Really, that's what we are doing here at Barbaro 360 and at Jake and Gino. We're changing the world one family at a time. If we can go out there and affect one family's financial situation, can you imagine that one family gets really strong with their money habits, then they can start expanding and helping their family members and others? That's what money's there for. It's really there to create options. I want to thank you for being part of the show today, for taking a few minutes out to listen about such an important topic. Spend a few minutes this week diving into your relationship with money. Thanks again, and we'll see you on next week's How To. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to like and subscribe so you'll never miss another episode.